Hello and welcome back to another episode of In the Line of Fire. Yes, it has been a few days, but we are live again and we are now the top four. Yes, I did say the top four, not the top five. Lord Sugar obviously pulled a different trick for us this week, and we are back live to review episode 10. The show that brings you instant reactions to all of The Apprentice in the line of hire. I was lucky enough, you know the drill by now, let's be honest. I was lucky enough to be part of The Apprentice journey by winning Series 4 back in 2008. And over the past kind of 10 weeks, we've been looking over the class of 2022. We've only now got, sadly, a couple of episodes left, but it's been absolutely fantastic so far. And again, massive thank you to the class of 2022 to keep us entertained as they have been. Each week, I'm joined by the resident expert. I always want to say the resident DJ, the resident expert, and my business brother, my COO of the assessment platform, Phoenix 51, Chris Wimshurst. He'll be sharing all the data and analysis. How are you getting on, Chris?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant episode this week. You know, baby food, fraught with danger, you know, in terms of what they were going to produce. And I thought there was some highs and lows, some very funny moments, and some very interesting decisions that were made. So really looking forward to getting into it.
Well, we will get into it. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We're linked in live as we speak as well. So please use the chat and get involved and chat. I'm absolutely delighted this week to be joined again. So returning guest. I love it. Absolutely love it. The winner of 2016 The Apprentice, a founder of Ridiculously Rich and former business partner to Lord Sugar, Alana Spencer. Alana, how you getting on?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me back.
Oh, mate, absolutely. We loved you first time around. The feedback was superb. So you are back. And you are the luxury handmade cake queen, as I think I said before. You've built an absolutely outstanding business. And actually, this week, really well placed. I suppose it's baby food and cakes, very different. But nonetheless, I'm sure you've got some key expertise that you talk about what not to do when you're building out the food task as it ended up being. So welcome to the show, Alana. Welcome back.
Yeah, I've probably made every mistake you can with setting up the food business. So I can definitely tell them what not to do. Been there, done it.
That's it, exactly that. So let's get into a little bit. I mean, before we do, for the viewers and the listeners that have been progressing for our series in the line of hire, they might not have caught the first episode that you was on with us, Alana, before. So just tell us what you've been up to, what you've been doing since you've won back in 2016, and you know, and how's the business going?
Yeah, really well actually. It's been a roller coaster, as a lot of businesses have had, I think, the last couple of years. But good. We've got 4 cafes across Wales. We've got our bakery in Aberystwyth, which is where we supply all of our cafes from. We supply online gift boxes, and then we've got a wholesale side of our business where we sell to cafes and delis for them to sell our cakes in their stores as well. So there's a lot going on. The cafes is a relatively new side of the business, to be honest. That started in 2020. We took our first cafe, and then a year later we had 4. I'm not one to do anything by halves.
No, absolutely. What was that like? Just touching upon that, because obviously selling online, and by the way, Ridiculously Rich is also ridiculously nice. So viewers and listeners, you know, I was treated last time around to some ridiculous brownies. I have to say, I know I'm punning everything here, but they were ridiculously nice that you sent me in the post. The brownies were amazing. But what was it like in 2020? I mean, myself and Chris set up Phoenix 51 in 2020, the global pandemic. Ultimately, what was it like going kind of into cafes and then realizing, oh, hello, there's a bloody global pandemic upon us?
We found a gap, so we opened them all as takeaway. So all of them have got a hat. No. So we opened Aberystwyth first. That's my hometown. By the way, I'm just going to say, so I've got a very annoying dog here, and my partner's not here to deal with her, so she's just going to squeak in the background. So we set up Aberystwyth, and we opened the day we went into the firebreak lockdown. But we had a little hatch at the front where we were selling from, and it was basically the only thing people could do, walk and eat.
Really?
So we actually sort of tapped into something there. So every store we've opened since, we've had a hatch put on, some of which we've never used, but it's there if anything happens again. So we're quite adaptable now to whatever comes over the next few years.
Brilliant stuff. So again, you use that word adaptable, and I think, but before we get into reviewing this week's episode, it is really important, isn't it, for everybody that's watching or listening, that are working, either setting up their own business or thinking about setting up their own businesses, or have been running their own business for a long period of time, or working whatever that they do. That adaptability is so crucial. I remember, I might have said it on your previous show as well, but I remember one of our mentors really for Phoenix 51 actually said to us, use the global pandemic really as a bit of a reset button, and actually have a look at what does the market need right now? Can you offer it? Can you adapt? Can you change your service offering essentially? And we did that, didn't we, Chris? And obviously, Alana, you did that with the takeaway service, so it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I've always been someone that's been able to sort of pivot quite quickly. I think it's quite common in business, especially if you've got a product, I think, to be quite precious of that product or that model, and to feel like, well, no, I've done it this way, and this is what I've put all my energy and my heart and soul into, and so I don't want to pivot because I don't feel like that's what I started. But actually, it's the people that do that then can come through and thrive through these things. So my business started as a chocolate business. My parents bought me a book and I taught myself how to make chocolates, and I sold them to the teachers, and I got my pitch on a farmer's market, and after a few weeks I put a few cakes on the side and they sold so quickly. And even though I had this passion for making the chocolates, it was, I saw how quickly the cake sold over the chocolate. So I just, even from that early stages, I follow the money, basically, isn't it?
Follow what the customers want. I think that's what it is, isn't it? What do the actual customers want? Well, just interesting, just on that as well. How do you mentioned about adaptability and pivot, but how do you scale something that's so? I hear this a lot when I speak to other business owners or entrepreneurs. How do you take it from a relatively small business, 1-person, 2-person business to scale it up with having multiple offices, or in your case, cafes? And how do you start to process that scale, that development?
I think it all starts with people. It doesn't matter what the business is. I've had to learn that there's only one of me and I can't do everything. So getting people that you truly rely on to grow one part of the business or take care of one part of the business, and then trusting them to get on with it, is really important. There's 4 of us that are key members of the team, and those 4, I could walk out of the business and know that it would be okay, or one of them could come out and we all know each other's roles a little bit, and so it's people to start with, and then it's basically knowing the numbers and making sure that you're not over investing, but also doing things by half. So I would love to open 50 stores, but I mean, firstly, we don't have the money at this point to open 50 stores right now. But it's about knowing that actually how many we can do before the money comes back in to do the next one. So I think they're things for me that are key: people and money.
So being prudent, but at the same time, making sure that we're still going for what we want to do, and that's that scaling piece. No, it's really interesting. You're getting the love as well from the comments. We've got a comment in from Ricky Sachs. Brilliant to have Alana back on the show. Been such a fantastic guest throughout the top shows. Thanks, Ricky, for that. I appreciate that. Very, very nice indeed. Let's get into it then.
If I could jump in, Lee.
Please, of course.
Yeah, I found it very interesting. Before we go on to the specifics of the show, I just found it interesting from a product creation perspective to see like Harpreet walk in there and all of these different elements of what could make up a baby food. And I was just interested, for someone who works within the catering industry, is that how do you go about creating a new product and then refining it and then getting it ready to then essentially mass produce?
It's quite difficult actually, because you think that you can make something in a kitchen and then just replicate it but make it bigger, but it just doesn't work. So the best example I've got, actually this was a total disaster. This was just after the and it was a winter winter warmer special. So it was a spiced apple flapjack. Mm-hmm. We made it in my kitchen, and we went, right, let's just replicate this but on a really large scale. And I think we made a batch of 500 trays of it. So we're talking quite a lot of ingredients. And instead of making something in a really small pan, we like replicated and made it huge. Anyway, it didn't work, and it turned out like a soup. It was like apple soup, and it got missed and it got sent out, and we got loads of emails from people saying, how do you expect me to eat this with a spoon? People were quite light-hearted about it, to be honest. But anyway, so that was a really good example of trying to do something and then just scaling it up. So every time we launch a new product, if we want to launch it in a big way, sometimes we do little runs of things, which means you can make things in the same way that you would a kitchen or a small bakery. But if we want to put something into our main product line, we do small trials, medium trials, large trials, a few large trials, because you can't just go, you can't just rely on one trial and then, say it works. And then something goes into the range. So yeah, it's not as easy as just maximize or just double it, triple it. It's
interesting. I never thought that. So again, we had an ice cream task, right, that we had to make ice cream in my series of Apprentice. And I think I was just getting, carried away with energy and enthusiasm and telling the owner that we're going to make our millions and all that sort of stuff, rather than actually concentrate. In the end, the ice cream turned out pretty well, but I would never have thought that it was a different. I don't know. You just assume, don't you? If you don't know, you don't know, right? So I just assumed that you just multiply it by the amount of dishes that you actually wanted. So there is more behind it than that.
Yeah, it's mainly down to the equipment. So in a small scale, you've got like a mixer, and then we've got these mixers in the bakery that are huge, and the mixer doesn't necessarily give it the same sort of mix that you would in a small mixer. So you have to look at, do you then mix some of it in this normal mixer and then pour that in, or this, that and the other. So yeah, but it's quite
science behind it. There is.
I was in the bakery today, baking and packing. I still get in there a lot more actually at the moment, because we're looking to scale up I'm really heavily training new bakery members, so that I can leave and know that the products will be perfect.
Yeah, makes sense.
And what about consumer testing? Like, what do you do? How do you seek feedback?
What's going on here, Chris? You going for it or what?
Oh, I'm jumping in today, mate. It's because of my sweet tooth. Consumer testing. How do you get feedback on it?
Is that your way of trying to blag some cake?
Wow. Yeah, I think you want some cake. That's what you want.
Consumer testing, to be honest, we've got quite a big team now in the bakery, so we mainly just try things ourselves, but we've also got Mel and Alison. They used to be in our bakery. When you find amazing people and you can see that they're starting to not love the job anymore, and they're going to go on and do something else, and you really want to keep those people because they're really good. So we created a separate part of the business so that we could keep them. They were our bakers, and now they're going around to food festivals. So that's fab. So they're in London at the moment. They're doing it's called the Eat and Drink Festival, but it's alongside Ideal Home. So it's like 20 days.
Oh, nice.
Talking to customers and getting some feedback. So that's good as well. They came back with a whole list of things last week. So it's their first week out. I think they were quite enthusiastic to give us the feedback.
Nice.
Love it. Brilliant. Okay, right. We are going to get into it now. Right, I appreciate that. So episode 10, traditionally taking the top 6 down to the top 5. We already know that Lord Sugar blew out the tradition and said, no, actually, I'm having the top 4 this week. Let's get into it. As Chris, you've already mentioned, the kind of, it was the baby food task. I have to be honest. I mean, I've got 3 children, right? And I would have been very daunted by doing this type of task personally myself. I also got 4 years of catering. I shouldn't probably be saying this. I've also got 4 years of catering experience back in the day in a previous life. So, but even so, I thought it was quite a difficult challenge. And actually for Aaron to be kind of, he didn't really want to be project manager, did he? Let's be honest about it. And actually, even though he was like, oh yeah, I've got children, so I can do it. It was kind of like, well, hang on, your children are a little bit older. I mean, mine are not that old, and I would have still been daunted by it. So, how do you think, Alana, that they got on this week?
Well, Harpreet did amazing, didn't she? The end.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of that, isn't it? Right, tune in next week. But she did. I mean, against Aaron, who was a little bit tentative, wasn't he?
I've got to admit, I would feel nervous as well. I think when it comes to, be it food or making a toy for a child, I think there's an extra level of care that has to go into it. I would feel a lot of pressure, and I'd really want to do it justice in terms of making sure that food was going to be something that would really benefit the child and nutritionally would be really good. Aaron obviously less so went into it with that in mind. I think he just made some carby stodge. But yeah, I think it's a hard one. There's always, the last task is always a hard one, isn't it? We had gin in my year. We had to produce our own gin, which was quite similar to this in as much as, I went and created the gin that we launched. It was meant to be pink peppercorn and raspberry, and you couldn't taste the raspberry. I was gutted. That was one of those things that on a scale it was really nice, and then they turned it into the 20 bottles as opposed to the one, and it just totally lost the raspberry. But yeah, it's not one I would want to do, if I'm honest. I'd feel a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's really difficult, actually. I mean, our task 10 back in my day was the supercar task. So we actually sold rentals on supercars, which actually for me and Alex and Lucinda, that was in my kids. The reason why, just for viewers and listeners as well, the reason why both Alana and I are saying it's hard when it gets to this point is because there's only 3 of you. But typically, there's only 3 of you in each team. And you're so used to having a little bit more of help, if you like, or support as a project. I mean, I project managed task 10. So I had me and Alex and Lucinda, and it was kind of like, wow, Lucinda was struggling a little bit, to be honest, on the car technology and all that sort of stuff. So I had a choice to make. I was either, with the greatest respect, kind of support her and babysit her, or just get on with it and win the task and go and sell with Alex. And I decided on doing the latter, which I probably wasn't very flattering to my leadership skills back then. But I just realised that, you know what, I've got to get the job done. So we just went and sold, and we ended up winning. But it is a lot harder, isn't it, Alana, when you're used to having a team of people around you, and all of a sudden you've got 1 or 2 of you, or when you split the team, there's only 1 of you. If you're that person that you can't bounce ideas off or anything, it's quite strange, isn't it?
There's nowhere to hide. And it's also really bizarre doing the filming side of it when there's just 1 of you, because they get you to narrate what you're doing and talk as if you're having a conversation with yourself. And I remember finding that quite weird. The bit I found the most weird is when they make you look into the mirror and go, "You've got this. You're going to win." I always found that a bit cringe, and I would never really give it much welly. I don't think they used any of my bits. But yeah,
they did this week. They definitely did.
Yeah, there is really nowhere to hide. You are, especially when you're on your own. So, like I was saying, I went on my own to do the gin. Oh, not that I did this anyway, but you can't go, oh, such and such said that I should put less raspberry in when you scale it up, because ultimately it's there's only 1 of you there, so there's only you to blame. So yeah.
I did think it was a strange decision, actually, though, from Aaron, because I know Brittany wanted to do the kind of branding. She put herself quite strongly forward for that, along with Catherine in his team. But I did feel that it was quite strange that he went on his own to do that part. I mean, I felt a branding bit, you don't need as many. You could probably do that yourself, whereas actually building the food out, or the dish, you kind of needed to bounce off each other. Is that going to be all right? Do you think that tastes? Do you see what I mean? That was my mindset. Chris, what did you think of the performance of that team and Aaron in particular?
So yeah, again, I think it was very obvious that he didn't want to put himself in the firing line, for want of a better phrase. we talked last week in detail about the fact that Aaron has been a consistent performer without really stepping up, and we said that this was his time to shine. We wanted him to be project manager this week. We wanted him to own it and really, challenge himself, and didn't do it. Did not step up. Reluctant to actually put himself forward. Reluctant to, I guess, impose his own ideas onto the group from a leadership perspective. Very passive, and I think because of that, Alan Sugar, the Lord Sugar, picked up on it, and he just said that he wasn't there, being the kind of business person that he could really see himself working with.
Do you think, Alana, just to come back over to you, that tiredness does take its toll or put a part into it? I mean, it's so difficult to tell the viewers and the listeners, to explain to them how relentless this process is. It is so hard. I mean, like, I'm a bit of an old what's his name now? Do you know what I mean? Because I was on it ages ago. But it's, I was young back then, and it was still really relentless. Probably one of the hardest things I've done. I've set up 3 businesses, one in a global pandemic, and I still would say that process is really, really tough. By the time we get into week 10, you're really feeling it, aren't you?
Yeah, no, it is really grueling. Especially, I actually found it worse at the beginning because I was so anxious that I wasn't sleeping. That little sleep that you could have, I just wasn't getting. So yeah, but by the end, I think by the end you're sort of starting to, you get it by the end. You don't even notice the cameras. You're kind of used to the whole process and everything. But it is just, you're just sort of plodding it out, I think. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do it again. It was exhausting.
It was hard work, wasn't it? But let's talk about, we've got a comment actually on screen. So thanks for interacting. M_0 talks about Akeem. Feels that Akeem had done enough to stay in the process, but couldn't find the words to defend himself when it really mattered in the boardroom. And I know we'll come on to the boardroom a little bit later, but what did you think of Akeem's performance during the actual task itself? Again, somebody that let's be honest, needed a massive week if he was going to stay. And again, I didn't see that much of Akeem again.
No, I don't think he had done enough to stay. But I think if he had have been a good speaker, he maybe would have been able to convince Lord Sugar that he had. I think it was, we didn't seem to do much based on what we saw throughout the whole process. And he also, he's so likable. I felt like he was one of the ones in there that I really liked watching because he seemed like such a nice person, but he was so easily swayed by other people, and you can't be like that in business. You have to be able to listen to other people's ideas, and you have to be able to take other people's thoughts on board, but not every time. And he just seemed to be so easily swayed. But sad that he's gone, in terms of he seemed really nice, but I think it was his time, I think.
Well, you tweeted actually, Alana, on the evening of when the show aired about the design. Let's talk about that. I mean, it was Stephanie and Akeem essentially, wasn't it, in the sub team, with Heartbeat just doing what Heartbeat does and just getting the job done on the food making team on our own. But that sub team, in terms of the actual branding and design, I think actually both teams didn't do a massively brilliant job on both of it. But I can understand where Stephanie was coming from, what she wanted to see, but the way it was designed, it just didn't come out like that at all. I mean, no one's going to buy that, are they, with the word "dies" written on it?
Oh my gosh, it's so bad. I don't know how they didn't pick up on it. I think both teams had concepts. So Foodies, all I can think of is Dies. What was it called? I
know. What was it? What was it called? All I can think of is your child's going to die. And I know it didn't say any of that, to be fair, but it was the impression, the perception of what you get from it, wasn't it? But it was actually First Time Foodies, I think it was called, wasn't it? First Time Foodies. And then it ended up being First Time Dies. First Time
Dies. And then the I can't remember either. It was something about travel. I mean, I say they're really good concepts. I can't remember either of them. About traveling around. But I think as a concept, they both seem to have the same concept, really. That it was like about exploring the world and being a little bit more than just a baby food. It's about sort of exploring new flavors as a child.
Yeah.
I think had, as an idea and as a concept, had a lot of legs. But then when it came to the brand and actually putting that on paper, it just fell flat. And they wrote dies.
Yeah. So. Chris, let's bring in the platform, right? So for those of us who are listening, we're just going to have a look at some of the data and share some of that data from the Phoenix 51 platform. Chris, who have you got as kind of maxing out on the task this week?
Well, interestingly, the data and the analytics within the platform really echo the end result. So you got a scoring range from Akeem at the bottom end on 5 points up to Harpreet top scoring on 16. And interestingly, again, if you think about the two lads that essentially were fired, scoring at 5 and 9, and then the top 4 ladies, you know, there was a clear gap between the boys and the girls, which we've seen throughout the series, I think. And again, you know, when we last week, when we had Ricky on, we talked about the fact that there has been a gap between the boys and girls in terms of the performance. And actually, I think you called it, Lee, which is, could we see an all-girl last 4 or 5? And
to be fair, I'm gonna credit Karina because she said it right at the beginning. There's no issue around boys versus girls. She said the girls are going to be better. It's unbelievable, and it's how it worked out. Was there a split in your series back in 2016, Alana? When was there a kind of a boys and girls split, or was it kind of, you know, as clear cut as it is in 2022?
No, it was 4 girls and Courtney in my final, in the 5, and then it was me and Courtney in the final, Courtney boy, and then 4 girls. But it seems to be, it's been since my year, apart from James, it's just all been women winning.
Yep.
So I don't just this year, I think actually there's a bit of a trend going on, that the females that are making it to the show are just really performing well.
Yeah, stronger. Yeah, for sure. And actually, we touched upon obviously who's getting fired and that sort of stuff in the actual episode. But if we can just rewind a little bit and just talk about, you know, the actual concepts in the end. I wonder, you know, there's a I went to a speaking engagement event a few years ago, quite a long time ago actually, and the founder of Ella's Kitchen was actually talking there, and you know, it's really interesting story actually, just quickly, because Ella's Kitchen you think was developed because of the food. That's where they made their money or grossed their revenue from. They actually made their money from patenting the packaging that Ella's Kitchen comes in. They were the first company to actually invent the squeegee pouch, where you take off the top and squeegee pouch, right? So a little bit of interesting information for you. And the reason why I bring that up is because the packaging that Aaron's team used was that squeegee pouch thing, but he made the food not even be able to squeeze out of it. It was. Do you think that was a bit of a? Do you think that was a bit of a stitch up, you know, like from maybe production or whatever, saying actually you have to use this packaging, or do you think that Aaron just didn't think about that whole kind of wider story?
Well, I think from being in there, they will have had a choice of packaging, won't they? But they would have had
a choice, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they will have had like jars, squeezy tubes, probably like yogurt pot type tubs, X, Y, and Z, and they had to have chosen which one they want. But you're not allowed to have the same as the other team, are you? On some occasions, so there's like first to the post type things. So yeah, but I would have gone for the squeezy one. I feel like I just wouldn't have been thick. So I think potentially what happened is he made the food and just didn't cotton on to the fact that if I've got this container, which he will have known about, I presume, at that point, it's going to be squeezy. But it was so thick. It looked quite disgusting, really.
It did. And the thing is, it kept, didn't he, Chris and Alana? He kept putting more kind of stodge in it. So he was like, put some more rice in there, like put some more like what was the other? I can't remember what he's putting. He's putting rice in there. He's putting what's it called? Yeah, exactly. So he's putting that in there. He's thinking, my God, it's just getting thicker and thicker. But in the heat of that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's in hindsight, but actually, if he'd have taken somebody else with him to the kitchen, they could have bounced off each other. So, like, if he'd have taken Catherine, for example, I'm pretty sure, that's not very nice, or let's change the consistency, or Brittany, and Brittany could have done the branding, or vice versa. Do you know what I mean? I think that was a fundamental error from Aaron to go on his own to the food. And as you say, in terms of the packaging as well, it's like, how are we going to... Sometimes when you're on The Apprentice or you're in the task and you're thinking, I've just got to do this, and you're getting kind of under time pressures and all that sort of stuff. When they were building the branding, Catherine and Brittany, they were just taking ages on like positioning and just not getting, it was the unimportant things that they thought were really important, and they end up running out of time. Yeah,
time is the biggest pain in there, isn't it? Because actually the deadlines are really strict, because obviously it's a BBC show. It has to be fair between the two teams. Mm-hmm. So once your time is out, they don't give you any extra time. It's not like, oh, go on, can I have 10 more minutes? It is literally, right, pens down. And so you have to, we learnt that quite quickly, actually. On the second episode, we got all of our timings wrong. It was a total disaster. It was the episode, it's quite an infamous episode, where Jessica lost the jeans on the jeans task. And just all of it was a real disaster. Everything that went wrong timing wise did, and we ended up with such a horrible marketing campaign. I will say though, at the end of it, we all were like patting ourselves on the back thinking we did a good job, and then we went to the boardroom and Lord Sugar just said, none of you have won. That was one of those no team has won moments. No, and that's an interesting point as well, because obviously that happened this week as well. Just going back to Chris, bringing you back in on the platform as well. What is some of the data for this particular week? We can see clear. As you said earlier, Harpreet with 16. Do we agree with the data here that Harpreet was the winner this week, Alana? Do you think? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think she's my winner at this point. Obviously, she's in a similar industry to me, so I might be a little bit biased, but I think she's just done so well, and I think she's one of those people, I said it early on, where she knows what she wants and she's very outspoken, but she's also seems, I don't know her, but on telly she seems very likable. So I think she's fantastic, and she did really well in this task. She was really good at working out how to create something that tasted good, and all of the babies seem to like it. It is a shame that she was only ever going to be in that kitchen, right? She's got experience in that. That's where she should have been on this task. But it's a shame she couldn't split herself, because I think she's got as well those sort of eyes that would see those mistakes. I think what impressed me was she straight away, if you compare her to Aaron, she's like, I'm going to be PM, and she put herself forward for it straight away. And I was really impressed by that, in terms of just that courage and bravery and the feeling that she really wanted to impact the task. And then when she went into the kitchen, she took another risk, fish in baby food. When she's mentioned that, I was like, oh my gosh, is that going to work? But she made it work. And I think she's quite likable, and she thinks out loud, and she starts like clicking her fingers when she's thinking. And I just think she's got that real energy about her, which I think would endear her to the audience. And I don't know, I think that Lee, you obviously both of you have worked with Lord Sugar, and I imagine that he wants that energy, he wants that likability, he wants somebody who comes with their own ideas, right? Yeah, for sure. I don't think he'll mind me saying this. He doesn't want to do the work. He wants people that know the industry that they're going into, that are confident in the industry they're going into, and can really hold their own. And you do have then board meetings with him every month, or sometimes a bit longer, to go over everything. And it's very much like being in the boardroom on the show. He wants to know what you've been up to, and he wants you to speak confidently about everything. So he doesn't want a timid, shy person, for sure. Yeah. No, I don't think you'll get that with Harpreet. No, I think just touching back on Harpreet, what I loved about that on the platform there, Harpreet's communication was probably not as high. The only amber she had, everything else was greens.
But I think what I loved about her communication, she actually was obviously asked a question or come to camera and said, well, my attitude and behaviour of being quite dominant has got me this far, and I'm not about to change now, so I'm just going to go full Heartbeat. And I love that. Like I thought it was really good. She showed, and actually the platform, we did a kind of a halfway point show, Alana, when we looked at all of the scores at the halfway point, and Heartbeat needed to have 2, 3, 4 really good weeks, really strong weeks to get up to the top echelon, and she's done that without doubt. You know, she's obviously made the top 4 now, but for me, she's right up there. I agree with you. I think she's right up there. Let's talk. I want to talk about Stephanie, because she probably would she put her hands up for the whole first time foodies and then putting the bowls out. I can understand why she put the bowls out, what she was trying to do on that side of things, but nonetheless, it was a mistake. But to be fair, Akeem didn't notice it either in that sub team and so on and so forth. And I think I might be wrong here, but even when Heartbeat first saw it, I'm not sure she totally saw it, and then it was pointed out. So again, getting carried away with what the brand looks like. What do we think of Stephanie? Because for me, she's been very consistent up until maybe the last couple of weeks, and maybe had a bit of a harder time of it. But I still think she's up there for me.
Yeah, we didn't see much of her at the beginning, did we? And then she just slowly started to. It was the task where they were doing street food selling, and she was really good at selling, that I think we started to notice.
Yeah, and I think that this week, she was mid-table, we probably describe her. She had some good traits within it, but if you look at the areas where she's really fallen down on, that drive and quality focus, and also the commercial awareness, I think that's indicative of obviously the howler of having the word dies on a baby product. And I think that obviously that she has to own that. She was sub-team leader, and you've got to have awareness of your target market.
Sorry to cut across you, but she did own it, didn't she? To be fair, she did say, look, that was my if you take the bowls out of the logo and actually read it as First Time Foodies, I think it's a brilliant name. Like, it's a really, really good name. Like, you want to create the fact that they're going to love food, going to try all different types of food, and they're trying it for the first time. So I actually got the brand name. It's just a shame that the logo was built in that way that actually made it say dies. I mean, parents are not going to buy that for their children. So that was a real difficult one. But I think for Stephanie and also Akeem being in that, they should have spotted that. But the fact that the other team also lost, a little bit like Alana, you said in your series, both teams lost once. They also both lost, both teams. That's quite strange. We didn't have that in my season, so on my series, sorry. So I find that quite strange that both teams lost. Do you think they got out of jail because both teams lost?
I think I can see why they both lost. I think the redeeming factor for Heartbeat's team is that the product was so good, but the brand was, well, it just was unfortunate, wasn't it? That there was just because they were the ones that I was thinking would maybe win, because they might say, which they sometimes do on episodes of this, oh, actually, with a few tweaks, then Ocado wants to order 10,000 units, but you have to make it not say dies. And they could have done that. But I think one, I guess, they want to make it exciting. And two, actually, was that then saying we'll change everything? This is what's happening now. The people have seen the show, so they go in there with an idea of what they have to do, and they know that they can say, oh, actually, we'll change this, this, and this, and this if you order from us. And I think they're getting a bit wise to that, and they want.
That's a fair point.
You can't just go, I'll change the product, the brand, the logo, and the packaging if you order.
Basically, I'll do the whole thing again if you just take some orders. And that doesn't wash. That doesn't work. Let's get into the boardroom then. So top 6, they're in the boardroom, 3 on each side. And as you say, it does all come down to the orders. I don't want to stick the knife in at all, because like you say, I like him as well. But Akeem, from memory, that's probably until the first week or maybe the second week, that's the first time he had an opportunity to be fired. So I actually think that Lord Sugar had his eye on Akeem for the following past few weeks, because the level of contribution, certainly what we saw from a viewer's perspective, wasn't high enough for him to be considered, in my opinion, to go and win this show. And as soon as Lord Sugar had an opportunity in the later rounds to fire him, he did. So that would be one of my points. What did you think? I know you said earlier about Akeem that he's a nice guy and stuff, but I just don't think he contributed enough to warrant a place in the top 5.
No, for all of the people that were there, I can think of a moment that they had that was a really impressive moment, like Stephanie with the selling, and Harpreet with this episode, to be honest, in terms of actually watching her create. Yeah. And he hasn't had one of those. I can think of moments where he has been bulldozed, and that's sort of the main thing I can think of with him, but I can't think of a time where he's really done something great.
Yeah, and Chris, you're showing a graph again. I mean, lots of reds, no greens, lots of ambers on there. Overall, around 10% for this particular task. I mean, what are we saying here? That the statistics don't lie, do they, Chris?
Yeah, I think he's been in the bottom 3 for the last 5 weeks in terms of the statistics. So consistent underperformance, and I think that he did win 2 tasks as project manager, but I don't think he won due to his own efforts. It's because of the strength of the team around him. And I think that, as you pointed out, Lana, he's quite passive, and I just think that he didn't have his own ideas. He kind of dined out on everyone else's skills. And for me, he was in the firing line this week and for a number of weeks. And I just don't think Lord Sugar could see himself working with him. And so for me, it was the right decision. I think, if we're going into the others who are fired, I think if you're looking at Aaron, he didn't do as bad. So if we have a look at Aaron, he was 9 compared to the lowest scoring girl, who was 12. So again, in the bottom 2. Interpersonal skills show up here. Aaron is a likable guy. I think no one denies that, and he's a good communicator. But there was just too many reds there, and ultimately, I think that it was the right decision. You can see why Lord Sugar had to get rid of 2.
I would have liked to have what his business was going to be in a bit more detail. I don't know if either of you, but he was, again, very likable, and also I feel like he was, that likability can do you really well in business. So I would have quite liked to see him in the top 5, just because I don't think he was a winner, but just to see what his business was and what he wanted to go forward with.
He for me, and again, I think the platform backs this up as well. I mean, I agree with you, Alana. He was, for me, a top 5. I had him pinned in my top 5. I think obviously if they'd have won, then he would have been in the top 5. So he was very close. He was definitely the top scoring guy, I think, out of the entire series, and that would go to lend itself towards the fact he got to week 10. I just think that maybe something caught up with him. Maybe it was pressure, or maybe it was the fact that it's quite tiring when you get to this stage, and so on and so forth. Let's get to Catherine and also Brittany as well. In fact, I put my hat in the ring for Catherine a couple of weeks ago, live on In the Line Higher. So I am backing Catherine. I do think though that she's had a couple of weeks where she's let the rest of the field catch her up. I think there was at one point where Catherine was way out in front. And I just wonder, Alana, coming over to you first and foremost, I just wonder, in business, if you take your foot off the gas, you're not improving, and if you're not improving, then others can start to kind of catch you up, as it were. Do you think that's happened here, or do you think I'm being a bit melodramatic?
No, I think she has sort of. It might be like you're talking about, a bit tired. I think she has. Either she's not doing as much, or people are doing more and stepping up. She's a pretty good candidate, though. I think I'm again really excited to see what her business is and what she wants to move forward with. Sorry, that's my dog. She's here, wants to be picked up. But
Get her on. We love dogs.
All right, come here. She's the neatest thing.
Hello.
How amazing.
She'll be quiet if she sits here. But yeah, I like Catherine. I think she was very strong at the beginning, very, very strong, and was the one I thought would potentially be in top 2, maybe win. But like you said, as it has gone on, I think other people have just got better and have got more confident. Sometimes people take a while to settle into that process. I think I would say I was one of those people. It took me a long time or not a long time, a bit of time to get my confidence to actually put my hand in and say, this is my idea, this is what I want to move forward for. And people have done that and maybe overtaken her a little bit.
Yeah, interesting. Just sharing the platform again on Catherine. I mean, again, some fantastic greens on there. Go on, Catherine. Some fantastic greens, but actually a couple of clear reds this week. Chris, what are you saying? I mean, communication. Again, if you was to say to me before this week, Catherine, communication skills not great, I'd be saying, what? No way.
Yeah,
like, she's a good communicator.
Absolutely.
This week, not so much.
It's been one of her strengths. But I feel like she fluffed her lines a little bit. I think that when they were doing the design task, I think that they struggled a little bit to get the concept out. And then when it actually went to communicate that, then when they were doing the pitching, she just didn't articulate, the brand. And I think because they realized that it was a little bit rushed in the end, is that when they're actually trying to then communicate that to a commercial level, she couldn't back herself with it. And I think that came out. So I think, I think she is a strong communicator. She has not had the best week. But I agreed all along that I think she was always going to be in the top 3-4 candidates come the end of it. And I think she might do very well next week. Come back fighting.
So Brittany, now I think quickly just starting on Brittany from the beginning, quite quiet. I think at the beginning, maybe a kind of Alana like, getting herself involved over the last few weeks, in the first few weeks, and then boom, she come alive. She started to really drive up the kind of the rankings, as it were. And again, like Harpreet, needed to have some really good weeks to go and catch Catherine and Stephanie, because for me and for the platform, I think it was by week 6 or 7, Chris, both of them two were way out and ahead. But I think Harpreet and obviously now Brittany, they've really caught them up. And I think she's got a real big chance now. She's got a real big chance of going on and getting into the final. What do you think, Alana?
When I was on this show last, I said something along the lines of Brittany needs to start putting herself forward. Otherwise, I think she's going to go. I personally think she's not going to do that, and she's going to go. And I'm definitely, I've eaten my words there. I actually think her and Harpreet are my top 2. She's really stepped up, and she. I loved her, particularly in the task where they were in Wales, and she was out in the rain, keeping the energy up. I think it's so nice when you see people that are quite quiet at the beginning, and you don't know how much is the edit because there's not enough an hour's screen time. They've got to really focus on the people that are doing badly at the start to show why they leave. But yeah, I think she's great.
Yeah, me too. Well, what's Chris? Just bring in the platform on Brittany. So again, some good greens in there. Talk us through that where she's excelling and maybe where she had a bit of a quieter week.
Yes, I think her interpersonal skills, that likability, she's definitely got that in droves. I think she's got a background in front of house, isn't she? Customer service. So I think that really comes across. I think what impressed me this week about her is the influencing skills and commercial awareness. I think that whilst sometimes it was difficult to sell some of their concepts, she really tried. She really tried to articulate, the journey of the product and where they were trying to go with it. And so I think there were some good elements there, though. I think they did struggle. She struggled a bit with the time management and a bit around maybe the creativity. They've got the feedback around the saucepan and the mixed messaging around the branding didn't necessarily come out that well. My only concern with Brittany was the comment that Lord Sugar made in the boardroom, which is he was basically telling her that they produced a poor product with poor branding, and she didn't take the feedback. She just carried on almost like, and so he really went to say, like, I really don't like about you, or something like that. And it was so he singled her out for not taking feedback. So she just needs to be careful to know when she needs to open her mouth and when she needs to just listen and talk.
Interesting observation, dude. So we are at the top 4, and look, Alana, you and I both know how difficult this next week is. I think it should be celebrated that the girls that have got to the top 4. I think they deserve to be there. Really, really well done, and it's been fascinating, seeing them to get to this point. But this is the game-changing point. This is the episode everybody wants to see. This is where the fireworks go off, and some people say it's dated, and some people say that it doesn't look like real interviews and it's too harsh, and some people say, oh, we love this part. Regardless of whatever your opinions are, part of this element of this task is pure pressure. I mean, again, I'm probably not still allowed to say this essentially, and I won back in 2008, but you are at this interview process for over 10 hours. This is not half an hour, jump in and have a quick chat with Claude. This is you are waiting outside that room for ages. You're then waiting outside the room on your own for ages. You don't know when you're going in. You don't know when you're going out. They keep you outside unless they change the process, Alana, for you. But this is what they were doing. And it was really, really tough. And then you're walking in there thinking, okay, I'll tell you what it's like, viewers and listeners. For those of you go on big roller coasters and all that sort of stuff, when you're click, 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 and you're going up the roller coaster, and you don't, when's it coming? And then you get to the top, and then they hang you there. And you're thinking, oh man. And then you just relax thinking, they're not going to drop me. And then bang, they drop you. That's what the interviews were like in terms of my nerves. Does that ring true, or am I talking rubbish, Alana?
No, that's a really good way of explaining it. And this is another point where they make you talk to yourself as well. So you're absolutely cacking it in the lift going up, and they're going, right, just talk to yourself about how nervous you are. And the last thing you want to do is like say out loud, I'm terrified. But they make you like narrate it. It's really hard. I'm really excited that Claude's back though. I'm glad I'm not there.
Yeah, fair play to Claude as well. Like really, really excited to see him again. Even though he tore me a new one in my interviews, to be fair to him. But absolutely brilliant to see him back. And I do wish them well. How do you think it will fare? Because seeing some of the data, all of the data collated now from the platform Phoenix 51, talking to the people that have been there and done it and got the T-shirt every single week, and actually being through it myself as well, I do think that there's two things to this interview process. The first part is, regardless of how good your business plan may be, if you break, you're going to break. There's no going back. And I think that is, and it's not to be derogatory, it's because it's designed to put you under serious amounts of pressure to see if you can handle it, right? So that's the first thing. The second part, if you get past that, you've got to have a good business plan at this point, haven't you, Alana? And be able to articulate that really, really well. So I think it's compounded by them two factors. Who do you think is going to come out on top?
Well, I think I know what Harpreet's business and I know what Brittany's business is. Harpreet obviously has a bakery. Well, it's more like a dessert shop. And then Brittany has I don't think she's launched it yet. She wants to launch a protein-based alcoholic drink, which I think is quite cool.
Okay, that's interesting.
I don't know what their business is.
So Catherine's business is pajamas, so online pajama store. These kind of matching, I think they're kind of different matching pajamas and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think Stephanie's also, I think it's something to do with children's, like an online children's store and that sort of thing as well. So again, I don't know how established their businesses are, but quite good concepts and quite good businesses. You'd expect probably all four of them to be able to articulate that quite well.
Yeah. You say though, the pressure, you could have the best business plan, but the pressure's a lot. Like, especially as you have to do 4 different interviews, and each one of those 4 are designed to test you in different ways. So, you've got the really harsh questions of like Claude goes in very hard on the numbers and the business plan itself, and then you've got I think her name's Claudine, who really sort of gets into your psyche and tries to work out how you are as a person. And she's the one that tries to make you cry. She'll bring up things like, those that have gone in there with kids. She'll be like, "Are you missing your children?" To really try and get your brain. I didn't have kids though, so I was okay with that. But she.
Well,
you get tested every angle.
Yeah, completely. I had Karen Brady before. Karen was obviously one of Lord Sugar's advisors. She was one of the interviewers, and she was. I mean, Karen's amazing, isn't she? Let's be honest. And she was sitting there with her Mont Blanc, and as I walked in, she gave me a big biro and said, "Sell me that." And she's sitting there with her Mont Blanc. I'm thinking, so I've got to sell her a big pen over why she should buy that over Mont Blanc. I'm thinking, my word, this is going to be tough. I think I've done okay, to be fair. But yeah, I had Claude as well. I think Nick does them as well. Nick Suter, isn't it, who stepped in for Tim on this episode? Actually, I think he does the interviews. And obviously, we had the amazing Ricky Martin on last week. He's also been an interviewer in the past as well. So he's seen the from a candidate, from an interviewer, and also winning it and being a business partner as well. So he's seen it from all angles. And everyone that I talk to says the same thing. It's tough, isn't it, Alana? Really, really tough. So I wish them the best. Best of luck. And I think in the end it will come out as to, in the end, the business plan, but who Lord Sugar. In fact, let's ask that as a question to you, Alana. Do you think Lord Sugar will choose someone based on the business plan, or choose somebody based on who he knows that can work a business plan? Does that make sense?
Both. I think you can't have one without the other. I had a really good business plan, and my dad actually helped me very much with my business plan. It's sort of what he does for a living, so I was really lucky. And I think, without that good business plan, and me talking very confidently about the business plan, because I'd been running the business for years, I really believed in the business. If one of those had fallen, it's all very well me sitting here and saying, look, I'll turn over X and I'll do this and I can do it. But if then the business plan is, didn't someone draw pictures of boats and something? If that's the business plan, then it looks like you don't take it seriously. If you go in there and you get all the way to that point and then you haven't spent the time to actually put together a good business plan, then it doesn't look good, really, does it? It doesn't show that you want to.
It is a difficult one for sure. I mean, Chris, you and I have launched a business together, of course. We've got investment, we're fundraising as well. We've got some fantastic clients on the platform, like global clients that work with us as well. But it's a very different situation, isn't it? Going into this high press environment and, and pitching your business, isn't it? Like to be fair, who do you think is going to come out on top, Chris?
I think based around what I've seen, I'm not going to sit on the fence. I'm not going to be Switzerland, but based around what I've seen over the last few weeks, I actually think it's going to be Harpreet.
So you're going with Harpreet to go. Don't forget, we're assuming 2 will go through. So you think Harpreet will be in the final, and anyone else?
Just Harpreet.
Just going straight for Harpreet.
I thought you meant winner.
You think Harpreet win? Okay, fair enough. Going for the winner. Alana, what do you think in the final, and then who's going to go on to win it?
Harpreet and Brittany in the final. I reckon Harpreet will win.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay, 2 Harpreets. Well, look, I'm going to break the mold. I think to be honest, I can't call it. I actually think it is all on the business plan. That's actually what I think. It's who articulates the plan. You would look at maybe Brittany's on the back foot because, as you said, she hasn't started a business yet. As our knowledge, that's what we know. So she's going in there fresh, letting that enthusiasm and energy just really drive up that plan. Sometimes that could be a benefit. But Harpreet, Catherine, and Stephanie have all got businesses. So how well do they know their business? How well are they going to articulate that business? I think all 4 of them could do really, really well. But I'm championing Catherine to win. I think she's going to win, and it could be any of the others to go through. I don't think they need. No one needs me to say this personally, but I think all 4 of them would be a credit to Lord Sugar's organisation. Certainly to our organisation, Chris. So maybe we'll get in touch with them after the show, see what they're doing. But I think they've been fantastic. Fair play to getting into the top 4. And let's see. I think tonight there is a special show at 10:35 BBC One called used to be called the Top 5, Final 5. I think it's the Final 4 now. So you really get to understand it. So if you tune into BBC One tonight, you'll be able to see that as well. And that's it. There you have it. We are into the top 4. Lord Sugar has done the impossible task sometimes of getting to the top 4 after a 10-week period. 12 down. We're into the top 4. The next week's show will be live again. For the most anticipated episode, as we talked about before, it's so tough, the interviews. We've got some amazing guests. Yes, I've used the word plural. We've got more than one guest on next time around. So please subscribe. You can listen to Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all via Audio Boom. You can subscribe at Phoenix 51's YouTube channel and go do the playback as well. And all that's for me to say is, Alana, you are absolutely superb. It's your second time in Alana. I really appreciate you coming back on and giving us your views. And tell us where we can find you and what you're all about and where you are on social media.
So on Twitter, it's Alana_Spencer. And then on Instagram and Facebook, it's Ridic Rich by Alana. And then you can go on my website, Ridiculously Rich by Alana, and you can order some cake.
Amazing. And honestly, generally, I'm biased, but go on there. Alana's products are ridiculous. That's hence the business name. So thank you once again, Chris. Thanks ever so much for your insights as always this week. And we will be back next time around live to review the horrendous or the brilliant, whichever you choose, interviews task. Thanks very much for your time.